Good morning, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the Lake County Planning Commission meeting for March 24th, 2022. We will go ahead and call this meeting to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
And then have your minutes up here.
First item we will take up is consideration of the adoption of Assembly Bill 361, findings authorizing teleconferencing meetings during a state of emergency. We are looking for also approval on the minutes from the January 27th, 2022 and the February 24th, 2022 Planning Commission hearing. Is there any comments or motion on those two items?
He's absent.
The resolution, the findings that we must make, I think the way they were amended at our last meeting continues to work, but that's just my 2 cents.
If I may.
Good morning, Nicole.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Chair.
Nicole.
Good morning, Commissioners. The findings you are making in relation to this particular Assembly bill relate to the emergency or an emergency that may exist. Your deliberation would be around what steps your commission would need to take in order to continue business in face of the emergency. If you're making the same findings as before, it is difficult to support them when the commission is meeting all together. Does not have masking rules, does not have, so if you're making findings, they need to be supported by the actions also that you're taking going forward in relation to this emergency. So if you are accepting or deliberating on what your commission needs to do in order to continue its business during the emergency, you would consider what the emergency consists of, how serious the emergency is right now, what steps you need to take. So your findings would relate to that. It would relate to whether or not you need to continue with social distancing. It would continue to whether or not you would need to continue masking in meetings. If you find that neither of those things are really necessary going forward, it would also be difficult. It would be difficult to also then justify being able to attend remotely, because if you are able to meet all together without masks, without social distancing requirements, then why then would there be a reason to meet
Remotely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was simply saying I thought the resolution as we dealt with it last week, those conditions continue to apply, and I didn't see any point in changing them further. I understand your point, Council. But we did alter things to say that remote attendance was allowed but wasn't required. And we didn't address masking at all, although we didn't wear masks at the last meeting.
So technically, are those changes if we were to move forward with having remote access as an option and no masking, or?
Well, you need not make, I'm not recommending one way or the other.
Sure.
I'm suggesting that in your deliberation as to what steps are required in order to address the emergency and continue and allow your commission to continue with business, you would consider what the emergency is, what is required in order for safety for your meetings, and then adopt findings in relation to that. So you would consider, is social distancing still a step that is necessary in your deliberation? Are masks still something that you would either require or strongly recommend going forward? Is there, and would you like to, and would it be necessary in your view going forward to leave the option open for remote attending should there be, say, for example, a spike in infections, or because I think currently there is globally a spike, it might potentially get here, so you might want to leave that open if you think it'll happen in the next 30 days, because you will have to again review these again in 30 days.
Right.
So for the next 30 days, in your findings, you would have to determine what steps would be necessary in order to be safe in carrying out your business. That being said, you also don't have to make findings right now. You could also make findings again in another, in the future, should things change.
Okay, thank you for clarifying, Commissioner.
It seems to me that we should keep the option open for anybody who doesn't feel safe to attend remotely. Do we need to take action to continue that, or can we just, I think you said something earlier about we need to renew it every 30 days. I think it's a
Why can't we simply continue the resolution as we amended it at the last hearing?
You could. I just want
That's
to...
all I said at the outset.
No, I'm not questioning. My apologies if I gave the impression that I'm questioning what you had said, Commissioner. I'm not. I just wanted to make sure that your commission understood the steps going forward, because there's a lot of lightening of restrictions. The court has done so, the board has done so. So I just want to make sure that you understand the steps here and what you are being asked to consider. If you make no findings today, then the Brown Act rules as they traditionally exist would apply, which means that to attend remotely, any commissioner who does so would have to notice it, would have to make it available to the location available to the public, would have to provide a way to participate to the public at that location. In order to waive those requirements, findings would have to be made, which are the findings that you have been making, related to the emergency and what steps need to be taken in order to allow for remote attendance without those requirements.
Okay. Do you have anything to say, Commissioner Chavez? I think we're kind of all in a consensus agreement as far as keeping it the way that it is and then possibly revisiting the Senate bill after.
I understand that one of us needs to make a motion to continue this way we've been doing it.
Correct.
I'm happy to move that we extend the language of the resolution as it applies to our meetings that we passed at the last meeting.
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And in regards to the approval for the minutes from January 27th, 2022 and the February 24th, 2022 Planning Commission hearings, do we have any motion or discussion on those?
Madam Chair,
Please.
we would have to pass the green sheeted minutes for the January 27 meeting. I think the only change is that Victor Fernandez has been removed from the minutes because he's not with the county anymore.
Correct.
And then your name was corrected from Perkins to Price. So we would be accepting these minutes rather than those that appeared in the agenda.
Thank you for the
And I move that we pass those minutes as amended in this green sheet.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're going to, I'm showing a untimed staff update. Council, is that correct? Or do you want to move, or you want to have that at the end of the meeting as we usually do? On my agenda. It's fine. We're going to go ahead with item number 1. We're going to jump right in and we'll go into an untimed staff update later. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Our first item is this is an item continued from March 10th, 2022. It's a public hearing on consideration.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Citizens input.
Thank you. Before we get into item number 1, we are going to have open it up for citizens input. This is an opportunity for anyone to speak on items that are not on the agenda at all. Good morning, Jake. Do we have any hands in the Zoom room for public comment or citizens input?
At this time, we don't have any hands raised in the Zoom room, but we do have some phone participants. So I'd like to reiterate that if you have dialed in via phone, you can raise your hand by dialing *9, I believe. I have to check every time. Yes, it is *9 to raise your hand. Yeah, thank you. Still no hands raised in the Zoom room.
909 here.
Thank you, Jake. I don't see anyone interested in citizens input in chambers. We will go ahead and close citizens' input and move forward on our first agenda item, excuse me. This is an item continued from March 10th, 2022, public hearing on consideration of major use permit UP 20-81 and a mitigated negative declaration IS 20-97. The applicant is Red Hills RHRP1 / Crystal Kesey, is proposing 25 A-type 3 medium outdoor commercial cannabis cultivation licenses consisting of 35 acres of cultivation area and 25 acres of canopy area, and 1 A-type 13 self-distribution 13 self-distribution license. Also proposed are 2 120 square foot sheds, 1 64 square foot cannabis waste storage and compost area, 1 312 square foot portable office building, 1 312 square foot portable building for use as an employee break room, 3 60,000-gallon water storage tanks, portable restrooms, and a 6-foot tall security and privacy fence. And just so we have it for the record, the property address is not showing on here. 8500 State Highway 175, Kelseyville, California, APN 009-022-54, 009-022, and 011-056-01.
Porter.
We will go ahead and have Eric go ahead and present his staff report.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mic check. Sounds like I'm on.
You're on.
All right. So as you indicated, we've got a major use permit for outdoor commercial cannabis cultivation, file number UP 20-81, and initial study 20-97. The item was continued from March 10th. Applicant is RHRP1. I think there may be a reference to Crystal Kesey as being one of the applicants. She is not. She is involved with the project, but not in the role of applicant. She is coordinating between staff and her team. Property owner is William Seamus Porter. The permit itself, as the chair had indicated, is for 35 acres of cultivation area, 25 acres of canopy. The property is zoned RL, WW, SC. There's another overlay zone on it, and I'm sorry it's escaping me at the moment. The property is not in a mapped area that requires greenhouses, so there's no conflict with the scenic combining. It is permissible to grow cannabis on this property. A grading permit was issued in 2017 that had to do with the removal of some of the vineyards that were on the property. Actually, it looks like that may have been for vineyards to be on the property. The cannabis cultivation would occur in an area where there had been vineyards planted. It's in a high fire area. Again, the zoning here it is RLB5 SCWW, which is rural lands, B 5-acre minimum, scenic combining, and waterway. The cultivation sites are not within 100 feet of any surface water body, and as I indicated, it is permissible to cultivate cannabis on this property, subject to approval of the major use permit. There are more lots that are affiliated with the Porter Land Trust, but there are only 3 that are under consideration. The total land area of the clustered lots is just over 500 acres, and so it's enough for the license types that are being requested. Site plan, there's not a lot of detail on it. The shaded areas where the cultivation activity would occur. And it's quite a large property, so the 100-foot setback, which is here, is actually in place. So in order to approve this, we have to look at the general plan, Kelseyville area plan in this case, and the applicable parts of the zoning ordinance to make sure they all comply with the proposed project. They did supply a water cumulative hydrology study prepared by Chico Environmental Science and Planning. As the chair indicated, they would have 3 60,000-gallon water tanks. They have 3 on-site wells, and I need to clarify on page 4 of the staff report, there is text taken out of the hydro study that indicates 500 gallons per minute on one well, 25 gallons a minute on another well, but the table right below that portion of the hydro study shows 2 wells that have a yield of 500 gallons per minute on average. The third well that produces 25 gallons per minute is a backup, and it would not be the primary water source. The primary water sources would be the 2 high-producing wells. Projected annual water usage is fairly substantial given the scale and size of the project. It's 16,450,000 gallons of water, which equals about 50 acre-feet. We looked carefully at the recharge and made sure that the water being used in conjunction with other water users in the area wasn't going to deplete the aquifer. So the recharge projected by Chico Environmental Science and Planning indicated that there would be more recharge per year than what was being used by this project and by the area wells. And then they got into some calculations as to why. They estimated the annual recharge during a drought year to be 178 acre-feet. 1 acre-foot is about 315,870 gallons of water, just for context. Total aquifer demand for all wells in the area is about 87 acre-feet, so it's less than half of what the projected drought year recharge rate is. The study concluded that the project will not adversely affect area wells' ability to obtain water for irrigation or potable use. As is the case with any major or minor use permits, we have to make findings. In this case, they're in Article 51.4, which covers major use permits. There are 3 additional findings in Article 27, sub 11 AT that also need to be met. We notified all neighbors within 725 feet of the proposal, and we have not received any adverse comments regarding this project. So the 6 findings that have to be made. Number 1, the use will not be detrimental to the health, safety, morals, comfort, and general welfare of the neighborhood. Number 2, the site is adequate in size, shape, location, and physical characteristics to accommodate the type of use and the level of development. Number 3, that the streets, highways, and pedestrian facilities are reasonably adequate to safely accommodate the proposed use. Number 4, that there are adequate public or private services available to serve the site. Number 5, the project is in conformance with the applicable plans, including in this case the Kelseyville area plan, the general plan, and the applicable portions of the Lake County zoning ordinance. And then finally, that there are no violations of chapters 5, 17, 21, 23, or 26 of the Lake County Code. We were able to make all of those findings. The 3 additional findings that need to be made are: the use complies with the development standards in Article 27, the applicant is qualified to make the application, and the application complies with the qualifications for a permit, also found in Article 27. We were able to make all of those findings. In this case, Crystal Kesey, who is our primary point of contact for our HRP, has passed the live scan background check, and they have been approved on this site for an additional 1 acre cultivation, which occurred, I believe, in 2021 through a different major use permit. So we looked at the CEQA potential impacts of this project, and we found that there were several categories that had the potential for some impacts. That included aesthetics, air quality, biological resources, cultural and tribal resources, geological and soils, primarily with prehistoric disturbance of soil that could impact potentially sensitive artifacts, relics, or other on-site. Hazardous waste had some potential. hydrology and water quality, primarily based on the size of the outdoor cultivation. There was some potential for noise, primarily with site preparation, and then cumulative impacts were evaluated. We found that all of those potentially impacted categories can be mitigated, and the mitigation measures are included as conditions of approval for our HRP1. So the cumulative impact potential affects 6 potential categories, including pesticide use, air pollution, energy use, land cover change, water pollution, and water usage. And we were able to make findings that each of those 6 categories could be mitigated in spite of the fact that there had been another 1-acre cultivation site approved on the parent property. Actually, it's on a different lot, but it's part of the same general area. So looking at each of those 6 categories, water use, I've already covered that. The recharge of the aquifer is about more than double what the actual usage of all area wells would be. Pesticide use, cultivators have to be very careful with what they apply to the plants. The plants are state tested, and the state has very, very high standards for impurities within the plants, so they have to be very careful about what they apply to the plants. Air pollution, this is an outdoor cultivation, so the air filtration systems wouldn't apply to this particular project. Diesel generators are prohibited. Burning cannabis plant material on site is prohibited. I always get a kick out of that one. Dust mitigation is required during and after construction, so the dust has to be mitigated with site preparation and beyond. Water pollution, the applicant has provided us with engineered erosion control plans. We're now requiring engineered erosion control plans on each cultivation activity. Energy use, they don't need any additional power. This is an outdoor cultivation project, and there are no grid issues at the location. So the total power usage for this project is going to be very minimal. Land cover change, the project's going to affect 35 acres of the 504-acre site. It will have an impact in terms of converting a substantial area from traditional crops to cannabis. However, that wouldn't, in staff's opinion, cause an adverse reaction to this property in terms of long-term ability to be able to use it as an ag-producing property, or to the neighboring properties, which are also ag producers. So our recommendation is to adopt mitigated negative declaration IS 20-97 and to approve use permit UP 20-81 with conditions. And with that, I'll take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Eric. I personally don't have any questions. Any of the other commissioners have any questions for staff before we open it up for public comment? No?
Yeah, I had a question. I saw that the Ag Commissioner comment was, as long as the cultivation, the canopy area is 1,000 feet from any neighboring ag production. Is that the case?
As far as I recall, yes, that is the case. It's quite a large property, but I'll let the applicant further address, the specifics to it.
Okay. Yeah, I also had some comments about water, but I'd like to hear what the applicant has to say first.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have the applicant in here or anyone who would like to speak on behalf? Excellent. Good morning. And you can do it after you speak, but there's little green cards there to fill out for your information for us. And just be sure to state your first and last name for the record.
Good morning, commissioners and staff. My name is Crystal Kesey, and I'm the project liaison between the applicant and County of Lake. And so to address your question, we are in a high vineyard concentration area, and so in the end of 2020 a 1,000-foot setback from existing vineyard agriculture was imposed by the Board of Supervisors. And so I believe that Commissioner Hayek wanted to ensure that the 1,000-foot buffer from any existing vineyards was in place, and we incorporated that into our design.
Thank you. We will go ahead and open up this item for public comment. Anybody wishing to speak on this agenda item is welcome to approach the podium. Jake, do you have anyone in the Zoom room wishing to
Yes,
speak?
I have one hand in the Zoom room. Shall I call on them now?
Yes, please.
All right. So Linda Fullerton, I've given you permission to speak. And I've asked you to unmute. All right, looks like you're unmuted. Will you please confirm your first and last name? Linda, if you're trying to speak, I cannot hear you. Okay, it looks like she is having some technical difficulties with her mic.
Do you want me to try and wait for a few moments?
I will work with her via chat to see if I can get her to resolve that issue. For the time being, I have another hand come up from Jennifer Smith. Sorry. Jennifer, I've allowed you to speak, and it looks like you're muted. Will you please confirm your first and last name?
Jennifer Smith.
Thank you. We can hear you.
Great. I just wanted to voice my support for this project. What a fantastic project in an agricultural zone with grading that's already been pre-approved, tons of water, mindful of the setbacks from the FPZ zones and 1,000 feet from her neighbors. This is the type of project that we want to see. These are the type of projects that should be approved, and I hope that the commission finds its way to approval of this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Jake, any luck with your technical difficulty?
No, I had nothing confirmed, but let's just check in with Linda real quick again. Linda, I've asked you to unmute. And let's see if we can hear you. I'm not hearing anything. I will ask her if she would like to type out her question, and I'll read it out loud.
Okay. While Jake is doing that, does anybody in chambers wish to speak on this item? Nope. Okay. Jake, even if she tells you that she doesn't want to speak via chat would be helpful on this end since I can't see your screen.
Yes, confirmed. I will let you know once I have an update.
Thank you. Counsel, I have to keep public comment open while he's trying to work with her, correct? Yes.
You could certainly do so, yes. Was the individual able to write their comment or question?
We're waiting to hear back from him on that.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Looks like she might be trying to get a phone number to call in. Jake, via the chat, do you see it?
Yes, I do see those comments. I will be replying.
just to keep everybody informed, looks like we are having a question asked via the chat in the Zoom room. We want to make sure we give everybody the opportunity to speak. Your patience is appreciated. While public comment is still open, and we're going to let Jake work on that, we can discuss this project as a commission, or if you have any questions for the applicant, since we're still able to discuss instead of just sitting here looking at each other.
Madam Chair, I do
Yes,
have another
Jake.
hand in the Zoom room at this time.
You do have one?
Yes, I do have a second hand in the Zoom room.
Okay. We would love to hear from them.
Okay, Donna, I've given you, it looks like you're unmuted. Will you please confirm your first and last name?
Donna Makowitz. I just had a quick question. I couldn't see in the documents who holds the state licenses to for the whole property. Is it just one company or are there many? Thank you.
Thank you. If you would like to go ahead and answer the question, that would be fantastic. Just go ahead and state your first and last name so they know who's responding. Thank you.
Donna, this is Crystal Kesey, the liaison for the project. There is one existing 2-acre outdoor permit on another parcel that is on the 5 parcels of the ranch. The applicant for this project is just one company, RHRP1 LLC.
Thank you for clarifying. Jake, are you having any luck with your other comment on Zoom?
Yes, Linda has typed the comment out to me. I will read it aloud for you now.
Thank you.
Linda says there is not plenty of water source. The McIntyre Ranch butts this property. The springs are dry and water levels very low. Water that should be coming from the McIntyre Creek off the property has been abated. The creek is dry. The water table is so low that last year we could not harvest walnut crops. That is the end of Linda's comment.
Thank you, Jake. And any more hands in the Zoom room? No. Jake?
No, at this time, we just had another hand pop up here. I have a hand from Janet Von Emmen. I've given you permission to speak. And so you're muted. Will you please confirm your first and last name?
Jeanette Van Emmen.
Thank you.
Yes, I just had a thought about the water as well. I was wondering what the county has plans for any type of drought mitigations. I think I heard this said that this was a rather water-intensive project, even though there are, quote, tons of water, unquote. So maybe the county has come out of drought, but I was just wondering how such projects are determined, or how the drought affects the decision. And if you're not in a drought, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric, did you want to chime in? Do you have any response or anything that you'd like to say in regards to that question? Thank you.
As staff, we're not hydrologists, so we rely on hydrological studies that are provided by professional engineers or professional geohydrologists. In this case, we did receive a hydrology report, well tests, and everything that we were given, prepared by people that are professionals in this industry, has indicated that this project is not going to deplete the aquifer underground water source in a manner that would adversely affect other users of this aquifer. So projected water usage, I believe, is 84 acre feet, and the projected recharge during a severe drought year was forecast at, I believe it's 187 acre feet,
178.
178. I got the two numbers transposed.
Okay.
So the cumulative impact of this project in conjunction with the other users in this aquifer, according to this hydrology study prepared by a professional engineer, is less than half of what the aquifer would recharge annually during a drought year. So that's the best we have to go by.
Thank you. Commissioner Field?
Yeah, I have a question for the applicant. What is the spacing of the plants going to be?
That's a very good question.
Do you have any idea how many plants per acre? That's what I'm getting at here.
So it depends on the type of outdoor production. So there's basically two schools of thought. One is an orchard-style production, which would be planted kind of like an almond orchard. I always tell people that it's like an annual almond orchard. So about on 12 by 16 foot centers, if we proceed that way. If the project proceeds in what we call a field of green, then it kind of is grown much smaller plants, kind of like oil production, so safflower oil or sunflower fields that you see. That's considered field of green, and that kind of production is plants that are mostly produced for manufacturing purposes rather than for dispensary flower sales. And so a project of this scale lends itself to being grown like a traditional oil crop, like sunflowers but the use hasn't been determined yet on the spacing because that's the production decisions based on market conditions.
Right, okay, thank you.
And then, if I may, I noticed that one of the comments was that they were concerned about graves on the site, and so I would like to address it because she typed it.
Please, thank you.
So it's a very big ranch, and there are historical sites on the ranch, including a small family grave site. I just wanted to say that the gravesite is entirely it's on the same parcel, but it's on the other side of the major wetland that's in the center of the whole ranch itself. And so there'll be zero impacts, and they're well documented in the archaeological reports that were done over the last 10 years on the vineyard project and the cannabis projects.
Thank you for that. Jake, go ahead.
Oh, just related to the question we got most recently from the woman who called in.
Yes.
It is important that any applicant who is permitted have a plan and presumably stick to it. But should conditions become so dire and the drought so severe, are you mindful of those things, and are you prepared to modify your annual plan depending on such realities?
Absolutely. There's no way that you can grow plants without water. And so, and also I'd like to point out that the water is coming not from the McIntyre Creek watershed. It's coming from the 500-gallon wells that are on Highway 29. So it's a different watershed, actually.
So those wells are in a different watershed. They're not.
Yeah, they're.
So but the aquifer is the same.
No, the aquifer is not the same. It's actually separate aquifers.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's in the hydrology report.
While we're on the topic of water, this is my biggest concern about your project. I mean, 25 acres is a huge amount. We've been using this number, 6 gallons per plant, kind of as a tool, which may or may not be accurate for Lake County because it's based on evapotranspiration rates for other counties that are more humid. I kind of crunched the numbers, and based on a 5x5 spacing at 1,700 plants per acre, and I came up with about 3 times the water use that you're projecting. And so I looked at the hydrology report. I mean, they're using numbers that are saying about 1.7 gallons per plant.
Well, you have to remember that outdoor cultivation only occurs in a certain period of time, so it's not 12 months of the year like a greenhouse production.
Right.
It also, the water needs of the plant in May are very different than the water needs of the plant in August. And so 6 gallons is a very accurate estimate
Is it? Okay.
for 2 or 3 months of the year. Until then, and then the watering schedule, based on our own experience on the site, having a use permit where we've cultivated cannabis outdoors at the ranch, we found that we only have to irrigate twice a week because of the way that we condition the soil.
Oh, good.
Yeah, by mulching, simply by mulching the plants, you do not need to irrigate every day. And so that's water conservation methods, composting, beneficial bacteria, all those things enable the plants to survive. And also planting different strains of cannabis have different water needs. Also different sizes of plants have different water needs. So if you plan carefully for drought predictions and choose your strains wisely, you can reduce the amount of water that you use.
Great, thank you. I'm learning a lot here. I was going to say, regardless, I think that even if you did need 50 million gallons a year, which I suspect you will, I mean, I just don't know that much about cannabis, but if you were to need that much, it looks like you have 3 times that amount. So my other concerns about this project are just, I mean, it's going to be great for the economy, but we are in a housing crisis here in this area, and 50 new employees, where are they going to live?
The 50 employees is simply for the harvest time. If you, in the report, it mentions that we'll probably have 5 full-time employees.
Oh, okay.
And then we very successfully utilized the same kind of agricultural labor, licensed, bonded, and insured agricultural labor pool that the vineyards use. And so for planning purposes for the use permit, you must plan for the maximum number of employees, so even if they're temporary employees. So harvest happens on this site specifically, I can speak to this site specifically, starting the 3rd week of October and goes till the end of November. So you have about a 6-week period of time where you may have, and I think it's 45, because we want to keep people in passenger vans so that there's not a huge impact on the roadway. And those would be the labor pool. If we are successful and we grow, then we would love to be able to employ more people full-time. And in that case, I believe in the county there's some agricultural housing and, lower, there's some housing projects that
Yeah,
we
for
can
specifically.
we can definitely get behind and hope that, a project of this scale would contribute to the progress of that housing,
so you're
improvement of the housing situation.
Okay, so you're planning to use the existing labor pool in the county?
We would love to use the existing labor pool of the county for
But you have no plans for labor housing or anything like that down there?
Not at this time, no, because if you take cannabis away from it, I know it's hard to imagine that you take the concerns of the community about cannabis away and think of it simply as a plant that's growing. A 25-acre field of an annual plant, say 25 acres of tomatoes, is minuscule in the grand scheme of agriculture in California. And I know you can't really divorce the special concerns of cannabis, but if you think of it as an oil crop or something as agriculture, I think it's manageable in this county. And I guess I should say that in 2018, a much larger vineyard project was approved for this ranch. And so by converting it to cannabis, we're actually keeping more habitat, we're preserving more of the habitat and using less water than intended for the vineyard project.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not making any judgments about cannabis or anything like that. And I'm a farmer myself, and I employ a lot of workers during the season, so.
Yeah, and to Commissioner Hess's statement, we have to, as farmers, as agriculturalists, we have to respond to the demands of the drought cycle and the water availability. So we would definitely do that if we needed to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a question, sorry.
Yes.
So originally the property was cleared for vineyard. How many acres were cleared for that?
It's an ongoing project, and so I believe that 35 to 50 acres of the original vineyard footprint was cleared in that area.
Okay, and I was looking on the report and it said they cleared like native trees, and so were the original plans from the same company was to do a vineyard, but then they switched?
Yeah, so the wording of the vineyard permit happened at the same time that the cannabis program was created in the community here. And the landowners are very concerned about land conservation. They're naturalists, hunters, people who are concerned about preserving the environment, and they thought that the cannabis looked like an interesting way to reduce the footprint of impacts on the ranch itself. And so the vineyard project is active and ongoing, but the cannabis project is fully located within the original vineyard footprint.
So there is vineyards there now?
There are vineyards being built.
Okay. Yeah, because that was my question. It was mainly, if it was originally for vineyards, then what happened in between to want to go to cannabis, and would all those like native trees, native species would have been able to be cut down if it was originally for cannabis?
It was a prior awarded use, complex grading permit for a vineyard, so I can't really answer that question.
Yeah, no, I mean, it made sense that it was originally for vineyards, so that's why it was able to be cleared. And then when the opportunity came up to do cannabis, then...
Yeah, I think that the mixture of vineyard and cannabis is, prior disturbed ag land is probably a really good spot to put cannabis so that there aren't additional impacts to natural habitat.
I think Everardo brings up a really good point that we should consider as a commission at some point. Our right to farm ordinance in this county allows us to clear for vineyards, but not for cannabis. So all we have to do is clear for vineyard and then switch to cannabis. Just thinking about it.
Okay. Any further discussion?
No, that was
it.
question.
Commissioner Hess?
Well, but just a comment, but that also has to do with the highest and best use of property, and the decision seems to be made now that tilts toward cannabis rather than wine grapes, for example.
Okay. Any further questions for the liaison, we will call her? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Jake, any hands before I close public comment in the Zoom room?
Yes, we do have additional comments from Linda and Donna.
I'm sorry, Jake.
We have there's the repeat comments from people who have spoken.
We will go ahead and hear their comments. Hopefully there was a little clarification for their previous comments.
Okay, so I have comments from Linda, who is having the microphone issues. She was the one that was concerned about the graves before. I just wanted to reiterate that, or iterate that. She also goes on to say that the field that is to be fed by the McIntyre Creek is only harvested 12 bales of hay. She says the report does not address the springs being dry. That is from the water table being too low. She also comments that the spring comes from, I think she was correcting someone's, the spring comes from the water table. How many acres of grapes are being pulled out and replaced with cannabis, she asked. And then she says, on their map, it appears that the fence is going to be about up to 175 along the highway, which faces the ranch house. And that concludes Linda's comments.
Okay. And what about the other comment?
Oh, right. And then next, we have comments from Donna. Donna, I've given you permission to speak. Will you please confirm your first and last name again?
Thank you, Donna Mackwitz again, and thank you, Commissioners. You brought up some great questions recently. When Ms. Kesey was speaking, she mentioned the large wetlands in the center of the property, and going back through the information online, I see that the field studies that she conducted were in 2018. Is she a qualified biologist, and have there been any recent field studies? A lot has changed from 2018, especially when it comes to the size of the permitted cannabis grows, and CEQA, as we know, wasn't as strong being followed by the county back in 2018. Has this project been updated with all their studies? And again, thank you for my last minute comments.
Thank you. Do you wish to respond to any of that? Just a moment, we'll have the liaison come back and discuss those comments. Thank you.
Crystal Kesey. I did not conduct the biological site assessments for the project. I am a botanist, a qualified botanist, but a local company was employed to conduct those surveys. The project follows the setback guidelines from water resources imposed by the state and by the county, and there are no impacts to the watershed with the erosion control plan in place. The wetland itself in the center had a historic ditch from the spring system, and that ditch, in order to be maintained, requires a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permit and permits from the State Water Resources Control Board. And we don't have any intention of dredging an old ditch. And so any loss of water is as a result of the naturalization of the wetland in the center of the property. And let's see, was there any other thing I needed to address?
Yes, Linda asked how many acres of grapes were being removed.
Oh, it's 1 for 1. So 25 acres of canopy is 25 acres of grapes. And the other question about the fence running up to 175, there's a huge screen of 100-foot vegetative screen of native vegetation of oak trees, manzanita, that are over 40 feet tall, that create a complete visual break to the project.
So how far will the fence be from Highway 175?
I think it's well over 150 feet.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
When you're on, is that 29 right there? Or is that 175?
175.
So when you're on 175 and if, say you're going towards Cobb and you look up, there's definitely a property gate, but everything that you, from my understanding, everything that you will see is kind of over the hill and not visible.
Yeah, the project, so I'd love to say that I've been working on permitting projects in Lake County for 5+ years now. I've been here since the inception of the cannabis program, and I've been here a lot longer than a lot of the planning department staffers. Not Eric, I've known Eric from the beginning. And so I've listened to a lot of planning commission hearings, attended a lot of cannabis meetings with the Board of Supervisors. No, this project is our response to the concerns of the community. We've listened, we've heard fire, water, transportation, scenic vistas, security. And so all of those things were built into the project, listening to the needs of the community over the last 5 years.
Thank you so much. Jake, if there's no more hands in the Zoom room, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment.
Yes, there are no more hands raised in the Zoom room.
Thank you. I will close public comment and bring it back to the commission for discussion or motion.
Sorry. So my questions, a lot of my questions have been answered. I wrote a bunch, and one of my other concerns was dealing with all the trips, and I think it was a great idea to have those transportation vans to cut the, because on the peak, it estimated like 50 trips a day. So I was just, seeing all these employees driving there was going to cause, some kind of like dust and, probably concerns to the neighbors. And so it was happy to see that you guys thought about transportation vans. So, thank you.
Commissioner Field?
No, I see that the conditions of approval, I think that Donna had some good points. If she looks at the biological mitigation measures, she may be happier with this project, that's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Hess, any closing comments or questions?
No, the questions I had coming in have been answered in the course of the hearing, and
Excellent.
I appreciate the thoughtfulness that went into the application and the project. And I'm prepared to offer a motion.
Please.
I move that the Planning Commission find that the initial study IS 20-97 applied for by RHRP1 LLC on property located at 8210, 8300, 8500 State Highway 175, Kelseyville, and further described as APNs 009-022-54, 009-002-55, and 011-056-01 will not have a significant effect on the environment, and therefore a mitigated negative declaration shall be approved with the findings listed in the staff report dated March 24, 2022.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Just a quick comment. I believe you said 009-002. I don't know if that's significant error or not.
No, that should be corrected, 022. Thanks for catching that.
Thank you.
I move that the Planning Commission find that the use permit UP 20-81 applied for by RHRP1 LLC on property located at 8210, 8300, 8500 State Highway 175 Kelseyville, and further described as APNs 009-022-54, 009-022-55, and 011-056-01 does meet the requirements of Section 51.4 of the Lake County Zoning Ordinance, and the major use permit be granted subject to the conditions and with the findings listed in the staff report dated March 24, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Please note that the applicant or any interested person is reminded that the zoning ordinance provides for a 7-calendar-day appeal period. If there is a disagreement with the Planning Commission, an appeal to the Board of Supervisors may be filed. The appropriate forms and applicable fees must be submitted prior to 5 p.m. on or before the 7th calendar day following the Commission's final determination. Moving on to our second item. A public hearing on consideration of a design review DR 21-01. The applicant, Nikki Island, is proposing a small resort containing 9 overnight lodging units, conversion of the existing dwelling to a social gathering room, a lobby, kitchen, and dining room, outdoor kitchen, in-ground pool and hot tub, site improvements including removal of 1,100 plus square feet of asphalt and the western driveway leading to Highway 20. Landscaping, parking, and interior access aisles and pedestrian pathways. The project location is 5835 and 5825 Highway 20, Lucerne, California, and further described as APNs 034-421-20 and 034-421-21. Good morning again, Eric.
Good morning, Commissioners. Before I begin the presentation, I need to indicate that the notice that was sent out for this, the legal notice, had a material error in it. It referred to a categorical exemption. That was the intent of staff initially. With the first planners that reviewed it, they attempted to categorically exempt it. We later realized that the potential for impacts was great enough to where we needed to do an initial study. However, the legal notice contained verbiage that applied to a categorical exemption. It did not refer to the initial study. So the recommendation of staff is that this item be continued to April 14th, which is the next Planning Commission hearing, to enable us to send out the correct notice. And I am prepared to go into the project today. So if you want me to go ahead and give the presentation, I'd be happy to do that.
I know personally I'm in favor of seeing your presentation, and I think that also gives us a little bit of time to think about it and expose it to the public and give them a chance to respond after seeing it. I say go ahead with it.
Thank
Please.
you.
Commission, does someone, you want to say?
No, I welcome that. I'm just curious if the applicant is present.
Good morning, and she is here. So thank you for your time and for being here. I apologize for the error on that, but Eric, please go ahead and show us your presentation.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Please.
if I may. Your commission may go forward to hear material today. However, because of due process requirements and notice needing to be redone, your commission cannot take action today. That includes, so I would recommend also not deliberating today. Wait to gather all information after proper notice has been given, and whomever would have otherwise attended is given the opportunity to attend at the next hearing. So today, simply presentation of information, public speaking, then you would continue to the next date, and then you would deliberate and make a decision and act.
Thank you for clarifying. Okay, Eric, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to thank the applicant for her patience. This has been a trial. She's had to deal with multiple planners because of staff changes. She's had to deal with procedural changes. Design review does not necessarily need to go to the Planning Commission. This is very different from a use permit. The use, according to the zoning, is what's called a by right use, meaning the zoning, which is resort commercial, is intended for this type of use. So what the planning commissioners are going to be looking at are the actual physical improvements to the site, as opposed to the use itself being a good or a bad idea, given that the use is an outright permitted use in this zone. So having said that, this is called Nikki Island, and Nicole Farb is the primary owner with her husband Mike. They own 2 lots that are on the lake. They're, I believe, in Lucerne, yeah, on Highway 20. And it's kind of a neat project, if I can editorialize here for a moment. So anyway, getting to the actual project itself, it's for design review for a new resort use. We've indicated the location. The APNs are listed in the staff report. Property size is just over 1.5 acres. Zoning is, again, resort commercial, floodway fringe, waterway, and it's in the design review overlay zone, which is why this application was required. It requires us to evaluate design review. General plan, it's designated as resort commercial, and it's also designated as resource conservation because it's right on the lake. It is in a floodplain. That may factor into the foundation footing layout for these individual lodging units. So the applicant is proposing 9 overnight units, which she is calling casitas. Those are not named in our zoning ordinance, but for the sake of this application, we refer to them as overnight lodging units. However, she's welcome to market them any way she wants, assuming that this use permit, or I'm sorry, this design review is approved. We've indicated that they're going to have an infinity pool that they're going to install, a sauna, there's a hot tub proposed. They provided a landscape plan. They've provided engineered erosion control plans. Essentially, they provided everything that a typical use permit would require. So they've, in my opinion, they've gone way above and beyond what the bare minimum for this type of application would warrant. The properties are located where the yellow arrows are, and again, they are lakefronting properties. So they would be on the west side of Highway 20 in Lucerne. The scope, this is a little hard to see. There's 9 units that are not there that would be added. Those are the small overnight lodging units. And there are 2 floor plans that the applicant's envisioning. One is for, I believe it's 168 square foot units, the smaller units. And the other one is for 288 square foot larger units. They're fairly small in scale. They're 1-story units, which is characteristic of the neighborhood. That's actually a finding that we had to make with the review of this project, that the scale, massing, et cetera, was appropriate for the neighborhood. And I'll get into that more in a minute. They have a house that's on the ground, and they're going to convert the house to make it into a lobby, a dining area, and kind of a gathering area. There would be a kitchen inside of the house so they could prepare food for the overnight guests. There are no other retail uses that are on this site as it's proposed. They would add a concrete patio, indicated the in-ground pool, the hot tub. They want to add a fire pit, sauna. They're going to use decomposed granite for the walkways, and they're proposing a 6-foot-tall perimeter wood fence for privacy screening. So this is a view of the property. This is taken from Google Earth on Highway 20 looking towards the lake, obviously. Shows the house located in the middle of the property that would become the gathering room kitchen. And so for context, the house on this site plan is approximately in the center of the site. And again, there are 2 lots out here, so this is on the, I guess that's the southern lot where the house is currently located. The structures that the applicant is envisioning are similar in appearance to what you're seeing right now, what she's calling these casitas. They're small. Each one would have a bathroom. This property is served by public water and sewer, so there wouldn't be any issue with septic leaching into the lake. She would have to connect each one of the casitas to the public sewer system as well as to the public water system. So for a design review project, it's a little bit different than a use permit, but there are some similarities. We still have to review it for general plan conformance, for shoreline communities area plan compliance, and for zoning ordinance conformance. So the zoning ordinance has chapter 54, which is design review. And under 54.4, there are 8 findings that have to be made that are not that different from use permits. First one, the permitted use is permitted in the district. Well, this is resort commercial, and motels and hotels are outright permitted uses up to 15 units within that zoning district. She's proposing 9 units, so she is well within the limit as a by right use within the zoning district. The site is adequate in size, location, and physical characteristics to accommodate the use. We had some initial questions, more so than concerns, about the fact that it would be built in between the highway and the lake being a scenic resource. Given that the buildings are 1 story in height, they're under the limit for the scenic combining zone, which is 18 feet for dwellings, and it's 15 feet for non-dwellings, for other buildings in the scenic combining zone. The project would meet that, and so we weren't as concerned. The other concern we have is if they were going to remove any trees, because there are several trees on site that are significant. And the owners indicated, and it's reflected on this landscape plan, that the trees that are out there are going to remain. They're actually going to be part of the feeling of the project. Number 3, that there are adequate public services such as fire, water, sewer, and power. As I indicated, the site's already served with public water and public sewer, so that is not a problem. I called the water and sewer providers to find out if they had any capacity issues or moratoriums in Lucerne regarding water primarily. And the person I spoke to at Special District said there are no capacity issues that are in that area and that there are no moratoriums for connecting to the water system. The site's accessed by Highway 20 and is relatively close to a fire station. And I indicated it's already served with public utilities. Power is also available to the site. Number 4, the project complies with all applicable plans. We found that it did. And the Shoreline Communities Area Plan is extensive in the types of things that we have to look at. It looks at landscaping, it looks at building materials, site development, scale, mass, bulk, colors. And so everything that we found in the Shoreline Communities Area Plan, we found this project was consistent with that area plan. Number 5, the placement and design of the buildings is compatible with existing development and won't detract from the visual setting. We were able to make that finding for the reasons I indicated just a bit ago. The buildings are 1 story, the existing house is 1 story, and that would not change. The neighborhood is characterized by 1-story buildings. So the mass and bulk of these, pardon me, new buildings is consistent with the area. Excuse me. That the project is in conformance with applicable community design manual criteria. We're able to make that finding, primarily with the Shoreline Communities Area Plan. 7, streets, highways, and pedestrian facilities are adequate. We were able to make that finding. Although Highway 20 is not intended for pedestrian use, there is a shoulder, it varies, excuse me, on the highway. I think I'm okay. I'll just kind of wade through it. Thank you. There is a shoulder varying in size from 2 to 8 feet. So there could be some pedestrian usage of the highway, although the high speed of the traffic, even though it slows down to 35 in parts of Lucerne, is still potentially a conflict, which is inherent with the state highway, for pedestrians, I mean. The no violations of chapters 5, 10, 21, 23, or 26 exist. We were able to make that finding. In the resort commercial district, I indicated that uses allowed include hotels and motels when not exceeding 15 units. So that would be the by right part of this. They're allowed to do that. In this case, it requires a design review, which is what we're reviewing today. It also allows for commercial and residential accessory uses and accessory structures, and then it lists what those are. So that includes swimming pools, etc., restaurants, and so forth for use by the hotel guests. CEQA, again, we were going to categorically exempt this given the small size and footprint of the individual buildings. However, the totality of the project led us to conclude that it actually needed to have an initial study evaluation. And so we did that. We prepared the initial study for the project. We were given everything that we needed to complete the initial study. And we uploaded it to the state clearinghouse. We received no adverse comments from any agency that reviewed it. And I was primarily interested in Caltrans, given that it fronts the highway. And I did talk with Jesse Robertson at Caltrans. And Caltrans is supportive of the project, in part because they're going to eliminate one of the 2 driveways that's existing on the property. The northernmost driveway is going to basically be removed. And with that, they're going to remove about 1,100 square feet of asphalt. That would be fenced over. So there would be 1 driveway leading in and 1 driveway leading out after this project concludes. We were contacted by the adjacent neighbor. He has concerns about what he believes to be potential conflicts pertaining to noise, lighting, traffic, and just general impacts to his quality of life. He's got a dental office next door to the site. We feel that the use is actually appropriate for this location, and so staff's very supportive of the use regardless of the potential concerns raised by the neighbor. And I guess at this point I need to say that I did ask the applicant if she's going to have on-site employees around the clock on the property, so in case there's noise issues or anything like that by unruly guests, there would be somebody to monitor that. And she indicated that there would be a manager in the daytime And there would be somebody in the grounds that's an employee at night. So they will have employees on site, as far as I can tell, 24/7. So based on everything that we've reviewed, our recommendation is to adopt initial study IS 2206 and to approve design review 21-01 with conditions. And so, having said that, I guess we need to continue it.
Thank you for your presentation. That's, we look forward to seeing it come up on April 14th. We can still go ahead and open it for public comment and some discussion. We just won't be making any decisions today, or comments.
The purpose of notice is to allow for members of the public to know whether or not they would wish to participate in the hearing. Your decision would be based on all of the evidences presented to your commission at the hearing. In order for you to make a fully informed decision, you would need to hear from every member of the public that wishes to participate. And so in order to do that, you would have to wait until proper notice has been served, and that will be at the next hearing. So your deliberation and your decision-making will occur after the...
Sure, but no discussion.
The danger of discussion is that you're forming an opinion, and you're forming an
Right.
opinion without all of the evidence in front of you, potentially.
Commissioner Hess?
Just speaking for myself, I would be most comfortable continuing at this point and absorbing the information we did receive.
I agree. Eric, thank you for your presentation, and we just need some motion from the commissioners to go ahead and continue this item.
I would like to move item number 2 to be continued to April 14th. Is that correct?
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We will see you on April 14th. We're going to take a short recess. I am showing a time of 10:17. We will take a 5-minute break and be back here at 10:22.
So we've got.
Thank you for finding your seats. I'm showing a time of 10:23. We will jump right into our third agenda item. This is a public hearing on consideration of major use permit UP 20-11 and a mitigated negative declaration IS 20-11. The applicant, Peter Simon / Pasta Farms, is proposing 11 A-type 3 licenses for outdoor cultivation. 4 would convert to greenhouse. A type 3B licenses over a 4-year time frame in 4 stages, and further described in the staff report dated March 24th, 2022. The project is located at 10750, 11,000 and 10417 Siegler Springs North Road and 10833 Diener Drive, Kelseyville, California, and further described as APN 115-004-01, 115-004-05, 115-004-07, which is the well site, and 115-004-08. And I believe Eric has our presentation prepared.
I do.
Thank you.
And thank you, Sam and Trish, for helping me here, being the technologically challenged guy that I am. This application came before the Planning Commission last year, and we gave a presentation on it, only to find out at the last minute that there was some question about the usage of a shared well that was on a property that was owned by a neighbor. And they have water rights to use the well water for 2 of the lots, but not all 3. So the planning commissioners at that time continued it indefinitely until the water issue got resolved. Pasta Farms has since purchased the O'Gorman property, which was the site where the well is located, and so now they own exclusive water rights that they would be using for this project. So getting into the project, applicant's Pasta Farms, the addresses are listed along with the APNs. Applicant is, Peter Simon is the primary contact that I've been working with. So the site, located on Siegler Springs Road and Diener Drive. The property in total is about 235 acres. That does not include the O'Gorman property, which I believe is an additional 40 acres. So the proposal is appropriate for the size of the property. It's zoned Ag RL B5, which is agriculture, rural lands, split zoned. Both allow commercial cannabis cultivation. It is not in a scenic combining zone, so the greenhouses are not a factor in terms of area. Natural hazards, it's in the SRA high fire area, which is pretty much true the entire county, I guess. Proposed is a little bit confusing. It's a 5-stage development, with stage 1 being early activation that occurred in 2021. Stage 1B, which is essentially what they'll be doing now, if they're approved, would be to have 762,201 square feet of outdoor cultivation. Stage 2 would be to reduce that to 697,000 outdoor cultivation and add 26,900 square feet of mixed light. Stage 3 would further reduce the outdoor cultivation, but it would increase the mixed light, which would be the greenhouses. And then finally, stage 4 would yet further reduce the outdoor cultivation, but would increase the greenhouses, and I can't read that number. It would further increase the greenhouse cultivation area. I indicated the original hearing was held on July 22nd of last year. The dispute I've mentioned, it's now resolved. Hearing was continued indefinitely so that could be resolved, which they've done. They purchased the disputed shared well property, and so the applicant has full control of the water that they would use for this project. So this issue pertaining to water rights is resolved. Permit requests, they're asking for 11 A-type 3 medium outdoor cannabis licenses with the conversion of 4 licenses to an A-type 3B medium mixed light, which would be greenhouses over a 4-year period of time. They're requesting 1 A-type 4 nursery license for mature plants and 1 A-type 13 self-distribution license. They did have to remove a vineyard, and they also had to remove a significant number of walnut trees. We don't have a lot of information on the tree removal, and I do not know if they got a grading permit for it. I think they did, but I'll let the applicant address that. So these are the 4 lots that are involved. The O'Gorman lot with the well is this lot. And then the other 3 are either cultivation lots or clustering lots to give them the total land area that they need for these licenses. Stage 1, there are 4 stages that are shown on these slides. They don't vary much. This is stage 1, stage 2, with the difference being conversion of this area right here. If you can see the arrow, that would become greenhouses, which is shown here as being darker. Stage 3, again, more conversion to greenhouses. And then finally, stage 4 would have yet more greenhouses. They provided a water analysis. It was prepared by Vanderwall Engineering, dated August 11th of 2021. There are actually 3 wells that are available to them. They indicated in the analysis that well 1 had an output of 192 gallons per minute during the test run, which I believe is 2 hours long. Well 2 has an output of 275 gallons per minute, and then well 3 would be the backup. It would be 25 gallons per minute. Annual projected water demand is 12,121,000 gallons of water. That would be the worst case scenario. The water study concluded that the annual recharge would be 14,175,000 gallons during a drought year. And the water demand here, the 12 million gallons, is not exclusive to this project. It includes all of the area wells. They have an existing 300,000 gallon water storage tank on site that had been used for vineyard production, and it would be used for cannabis irrigation. So we had to evaluate this project like we do any cultivation project for general plan compliance, area plan compliance, and applicable zoning ordinance compliance. So we have to make 6 findings found in Article 51, which are major use permits: that the use is not detrimental to the neighborhood, that the lot is adequately sized for the use, that streets, bicycle, and pedestrian facilities are available and adequate for the use, that adequate public or private services are available for the project, that the project conforms with applicable plans and zoning regulations, and that there are no violations on site. I confirm the violations part because there was some question in my mind as far as whether there were any grading violations pertaining to any trenching that occurred. And I talked with the code enforcement manager who did several site visits. I talked with our grading expert, Todd Elliott, and I also talked with our building department, and they had all indicated that there are no open violations that are on the site. The other part we have to evaluate are found in Article 27, subsection 11AT, which are that the use complies with all applicable development standards, that the applicant is qualified to make the application, and that the application complies with the requirements for a permit. And we were able to make all those findings. The applicant, Peter Simon, has passed live scan. We have his live scan results in the planning department, and he's successfully passed the background check, and that the application meets the applicable standards, and it complies with the requirements for a permit submittal. We had to evaluate CEQA. We evaluated it through an initial study that was resulting in a mitigated negative declaration. So there are potential impacts associated with the project that can be mitigated to less than significant levels. Cumulative impact, we did evaluate it for that, and I indicated on the first application the 6 categories that are involved with the cumulative impact analysis. And we were able to make the finding that none of the 6 categories would be adversely impacted by this project. So that would include water use, pesticide use, air pollution, water pollution, energy use, and land cover change. And to touch on energy use, they will be using greenhouses. They will be using mixed light, which requires a very low wattage. And the current power serving that site, they have 3 different power services. They have one for, I believe it's 800 amps. They have one for 200 amps that serves the house. And they have a third service line that's 100 amps for the wells. And so they actually have adequate power on site, and they do not need additional power according to their project manager. The land cover change, it'll affect 35 acres of the 504-acre site. I don't think those numbers are right. I'm going to have to verify that. So the recommendation is to adopt IS 20-11 and to approve use permit UP 20-11 with conditions. And so I'll be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you. Before I open it up for public comment, does the commission, do either of the commissioners have any questions for the applicant or for staff?
Not at this time.
No?
Just for the applicant.
Cool. Eric, do you know if we have, is the applicant present?
Yes.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. And we will go ahead and open up public comment. If anyone wishes to speak, the applicant is welcome to speak as well if you have anything to say. Sure. We'll let you go ahead and go first. Yes, you will. And please be sure to state your first and last name and to complete a green card. You will have 3 minutes.
Can I put these over here since they've already had a little issue?
Sure.
Thank you. My name is Sheila Henry. And what else am I supposed to say?
That's pretty much it.
Okay.
And, Sheila, you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay. The first problem is that I am allergic to marijuana. I have incurred $66,000 in health bills. Luckily, I have insurance, which cost me $7,000. I have it written down. $7,253 of my own money. My job is in jeopardy because I've had to take sick time off. I've had an MRI because I have polyps in my nose. My horses are highly affected. I have time after time backup noise. The decibels for a backup noise tractor is about 90 decibels. At 100 decibels, horses are not able to adjust to the backup noise. And it starts 6:55 a.m., 6:08 a.m., 6:58 a.m., 6:38 a.m., and on down. So my horses are never free of the noise, never free. And as a result, they were men out in the fields with hazmat suits, running backpack sprayers, several of them. I can't say how many. I couldn't count them because my horses were out of control. I've never had any situation with my horses. I've owned them 5 years. They're registered. They're expensive. I have a paint and I have a palomino, and I've ridden them forever. okay, since I've owned them. And I've had over 30 years of horses, okay? So I'm not unaware of horses. I went into the corral. My horse was so out of control. I've never had any fear. I was up to try to calm him down. He was out of control. I got clipped. I did not get kicked. He could not stop. He was out of control from this farm, and the noise and the backpacks going brrrr, I can hear it. I have a map of where I sit. My property sits. We had that map that was up there. And this property, I sit right there. So I'm not only, and my well is within 100 feet of their property line, my well. So the problem is, I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose my livelihood. If I didn't have insurance, I've already lost $7,000. And it's affecting my horses. I cannot ride my horses. It's reduced the value of my horses now. Okay, I do have an arena, I do work them out, but there's no way I could walk to use it in front of their property. So, am I up?
Yeah, that was your 3 minutes.
I also want to say I did submit something to the commission last year, but I didn't get a chance to talk because of the water problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have to fill that out?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else like to speak in chambers about this item? You could approach the podium.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My
Just,
name is Lynn Wiley.
can you say your name one more time into the microphone?
My name is Lynn Wiley. My
Thank you.
partner and I own a 40-acre parcel that one corner touches one of their corners. And I'm thrilled with the idea of more employment coming to the county, more people being able to get jobs, and I'm not opposed to, in general, just having agricultural stuff there. My problems start, and they're willing to address my problems, which I want to say up front. He just said he's willing to address my problems. My problems are the number of employees they have created rush hour. And this is a dirt road. So you get flames of dirt flying up after every car. The speed limit on Cedar Springs is 55 miles an hour. I only know that because I plowed into someone when they pulled out of a driveway who was on the highway patrol report.
Wow.
So you can't ticket them for speeding because they're not speeding. And it's also a dirt road that was paved back in the 50s, which means it's dirt over asphalt. So there's potholes. And they're not like potholes you can just fix. So the increased traffic, the once-a-year grading that I'm grateful the county does, is no longer sufficient. So the rushing cars, the dust, the potholes, the water. I've heard from a neighbor that the aquifer for the ashram down the road has gone down 50 feet. I don't have that fact. Maybe somebody else does. But our well is 600 feet deep for us to get water. I can't afford to dig another well. I can't afford to lose that well. If we lose that well, we are simply bankrupt. So plans for how to handle drought years, grow less. Plans for how to handle the road and the employees. I would be thrilled to have the business there, but I would like it to work so that we don't lose our property and people don't get hit if they're walking down the road because people are speeding, or our dogs that get loose sometimes, or, you know, just usual. There's a cluster of about a dozen houses right here. And we're the ones, now they did dust off the road section in front of all the houses when I asked them to, except they missed our house. That was a mistake, and they did want to rectify it next time around. Those are my concerns.
Thank you for your comments.
Ms. Wiley? Hello.
Over here. Hi.
Hi.
May I just ask a follow-up question?
Yes.
With reference to speeding vehicles, is the point that that's only occurred since this project has been initiated, or were not
My
cars speeding
understanding,
beforehand?
he says that his employees shouldn't be leaving the property, but I haven't noticed a drastic increase since they've been there. So if he says it's not them, it's from someplace else, but that's really hard to say. I do know that there's a lot of cars parked there during the day. I love people having employees. I just don't like the consequences to the dozen houses on the road right there. And they do try and tell their employees to slow down or we'll fire you. But in real life, nobody slows down.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Peter Simon. I'm the manager of the applicant. First, I'd like to thank the commissioners and the commission for taking the time to consider this, and I want to thank Mr. Porter. He's worked tirelessly through this, and it's been more complicated than it should have been. I want to just address a couple of quick points, just so they get a sense of what we're trying to do. One, we are committed to being good neighbors, and I want to apologize to our neighbors that we have had problems that we want to address. The speeding is something that we really have lowered the boom on our employees. Sometimes we're late to discover some of the problems. We don't control, and some of the, as one of the earlier proponents of a project talked about, at particular times we'll bring in outside labor. When they come, it's usually for a short period of time. It might be a week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks at harvest or something. We have limited control over what they're doing. We are speaking to their managers and telling them that we're adamant that we control the traffic and the speed. With Ms. Henry, we have communicated with her, and I think we've actually had very pleasant communications. I don't know exactly what we can do to help alleviate all of her concerns. We have planted a big field of lavender between our properties to try to ameliorate that. The backpacks are not mechanical, they're manual pumps, so I'm not 100% certain of the noise, but they're not, in my opinion, they're not very loud. The big issues that I wanted to discuss real briefly are just for the concerns, and this is based on conversations we had during the break. The water that we are pulling from, our wells, I think we're 157 and 300 feet. This area, if you read the well report, has a lot of different aquifers to it. We did well tests in 2020 and in 2021, and they're in the file. There was zero drawdown, and they were long drawdowns. So even in a drought year, we have been adamant that all of the studies be conservative. The hydrogeological report that we did was premised on a drought year that was a third less rain than last year. So it was 6 inches rather than 9. The typical annual rainfall is 34. And the amount of water that we used based on our meters for the 9 acres that we did when we were under EA was 4.35 million gallons. The study that we did assumes 12 million gallons. So it assumes almost a tripling of the total water usage was still ample without impacting the aquifers. We are not interested in draining the aquifer. We are adamant, and that is one of the reasons we have the storage area up top. The other quick point I wanted to talk about, because there was interest brought up, is trees. The only trees that were taken down were walnut orchard, and that was done, the partner on this property and myself are both longtime grape growers. We were taking the walnut trees out before we'd ever even contemplated cannabis, and then basically the grape market isn't what it used to be. And so we were looking for ways, and that's kind of how we find ourselves here. We're not longtime cannabis folk. We've been grape growers, and now we're doing something a little different. But we did not pull out any native trees or other types of things. We did, when working with the county, and we did have that was with the grading permit, all properly approved. And when working with the county, there were some dangerous trees that were dead that were pulled out, but we cleared that with Takara before we took them down, and we even took some other trees down at our neighbor's request. what I want to assure the commission and our neighbors is we will work with them. If there are problems, we want to be a good neighbor. If we can fill potholes, to be honest with you, I'm not sure that we can, but if we're allowed to fill potholes, we will, whether we're causing them or not. We will try to keep our employees' speed down. We'll try to keep the traffic to a minimum. We want to work to minimize the amount of water we use, and frankly, the type of farming we do with a plastic mulch and everything is designed to minimize the water impact. We're very sensitive to that. And with that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Sure.
Thank you.
Of course.
Personally, on my property, I maintain the potholes because it slows people down. Just saying. My question, I have great sympathy for Ms. Henry. It must really suck to be allergic to marijuana. About the noise and the horses, I understand that the equipment, you're probably using forklifts or something that are making those backup noises that I think legally you have to keep them functioning. Is there any way you can make that a little bit more tolerable for her, maybe after 8 a.m. or something like that? Is there anything?
Yes, so we actually communicated, this year, our plan is to plant in late June, and we would finish our harvest in late October, approximately. Some of it depends exactly on rain and such. Towards the end of last season, we were in communication with Ms. Henry, and I think we had some success in mitigating. I think things improved towards the end. What we have been doing to do that is we have the backup beepers turned to their minimum. We're also, I think the worst time from, if I'm reading the situation correctly, is in the mornings. So what we're doing is we're trying to back the tractors in, so we're only pulling out forward. So for the first thing in the morning, it's when people get going that oftentimes the noise happens, but we are doing what we can. There are certain aspects of farming, whether it's grapes or cannabis, that it just has to be done in the mornings. You can't do it in the heat of the day for the health of people and such. So some of it has to get going at certain times. But yes, we actually, last year, we started farming later at the request of our neighbors.
Awesome, thank you. I just want to point out here, because I think this is something that a lot of people are just not aware of, that, as a grape grower, and I've been a grape grower as well, we're allowed to do a lot of things under the right to farm ordinance in this county. That does not apply to cannabis.
Yes.
You understand that?
Yeah, we found that out with our irrigation.
Okay, thank you. The only other thing I wanted to ask about was you're putting according to this, you're putting this into greenhouses now. That will actually reduce your water consumption, right?
It is uncertain. The issue with the greenhouse, when we say greenhouses, we're talking mixed light, so it's a greenhouse that has some oversight. You're able to get more turns. So yes, we would use less water for the same amount of space, but we would have more cycles of crops grown. But even still, either way, we are still well below anything that would impact this aquifer based on the studies we've seen.
Sir?
Yes.
I'm picking up on greenhouses, and what we've learned over the years of approving these kinds of permits or not is that they're a great way to help control odors, especially with filtration and scrubbers and all of that. And you seem to have embraced the idea of greenhouses. I'm wondering why you're not building those all now rather than 2 years from now, or is there any way to accelerate that or build more greenhouses than you initially anticipated?
I picked up lottery tickets on my way over. So it's the greenhouse models that we have been contemplating are about $1 million a piece. They're very expensive, and the market itself is very dynamic, as I'm sure you guys have heard. Last year was a very different year than this last year we just experienced, or the prior year. We would love to do more, but it really is all about economics. We can't, and that's why we have them phased. The idea was not that we were going to go out and do some massive construction project that would require a huge amount of capital without making sure that it would work in the first place. This is a site that's really well suited for outdoor, and we really can't afford to do everything on the indoor. Also, the mixed light is half the size, so we're reducing the ability to grow on a large portion of our property when we move to a license to a mixed light.
Why are you transitioning to some greenhouses at all?
The idea is to basically diversify the type of product. The marketplace has a different demand for mixed light versus outdoor. And the idea was that what we can do is provide the purchasers of our property, of our product, we don't have any connection to the retail, but provide them a different type of product to help diversify and hopefully hit some different sales channels.
Thank you.
Of course.
Commissioner Chavez, do you have any questions?
Sure. So there was a property that was acquired to be able to use the well, right?
Yeah, there was a disagreement about the water use. I'll touch. We believe that we had the right to use the well all along. It was never, but there was a dispute. The matter was continued. We're on very good terms with the former owner. Rather than go through the process of resolving it through basically a court system or what's called a declaratory relief action, we purchased it. It also then provides some housing, which will hopefully reduce the traffic as well. So it had a number of, I hate this word, but it had a number of synergies. So we purchased that. We're also in the process of trying to find some other wells on areas that are farther removed. This well currently, Ms. Wildy's 600-foot well is on the opposite side of the property from the well that we're using here. So there's a significant difference. So we're trying to diversify the water sources so we don't impact the aquifers significantly.
Sure. And with that, my question is how far the well is from the site?
It's across the street.
And you guys are going to be transporting the water through?
The well that we're using has been used well before we ever purchased the property. It was actually owned by the O'Gormans. All of these properties, well, not all of them, but most of the properties that make up our current property ownership were owned by the O'Gormans before we purchased them. There was a vineyard that was installed. That well served that vineyard. There's a line that goes under the street and we've just tapped into that.
Okay, that was my question, just to see how, well, if you guys had to do anything to get the water over there, but since it was already established.
We had a significant irrigation system in place for the vineyard already.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone in chambers wish to speak on this? I will come back to you. I want to make sure that I give everyone else a chance to speak before we have any repeat comments. Jake, is there any hands in the Zoom room?
We do have one hand raised in the Zoom room.
Okay.
Donna, I see your hand raised. I've given you permission to speak.
Jake, I'm not sure if they can hear you.
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Please be sure to state your first and last name.
Questions. I noticed that the biological report was done by Weimeyer in 2019, and please consider all the drastic changes that have happened to the county since 2019. And also, Mr. Simon mentioned that he represented the applicant. I was wondering, who is the applicant holding the state cannabis license for this project? And again, 3 minutes is really not enough for someone who's not used to appearing before a committee. As Ms. Henry was up there, it would be interesting to hear more than 3 minutes of someone who's been really drastically impacted by this project. And again, thank you for taking my comments.
Thank you. And she will be allowed to speak again. Any other hands in the Zoom room?
At this time, there are no more hands in the Zoom room.
Thank you. And you're welcome to approach the podium. No. Please be sure to state your first and last name. Thank you.
Shane Williams. I would like to bring up the road issue again. It's quite a disturbance. They grade it, and within a week, it's messed up again. And people drive on the wrong side of the road to avoid all the potholes. And it's really, people walk on the road, and there's been a lot more traffic since this project has been involved in our road. So I think, it would be good for them to surface it. That would be a big portion to help the situation.
Is this a county road you're talking about?
Yes, it is.
County maintained, okay.
And, yeah, they do dust off in front of their section, and it only lasts a certain amount of time, and then they were watering the road, and it was creating mud. So, yeah, the road's a real big issue for a lot of people, not just Ziegler, but Diener as well.
And I believe someone else from the public mentioned the speed limit of 55 miles an hour.
I wasn't aware of that, but
No, but possibly, even some suggestive, something that says slow down or anything to have something posted might be helpful.
I wonder what the process is at the county.
To get something posted, maybe?
That's what I was going to speak to. We can, when we're talking about private roads, easements, things like that, we can be as persuasive as possible that the applicant and the resident or property owner come to some kind of accommodation. But I believe potholes on Ziegler would be the Public Works Department. There's nothing we could do about that as a planning commission. Just, not that we wouldn't be inclined to help, but that's a Public Works Department.
yeah, and Diener is narrow at certain points, and there's big trucks and cars going by, well, the speeds are, yeah, accelerated by the workers, because there's not only this farm, but the vineyard workers that are on Diener also. There's a bunch of workers there. So this road has been well, trafficked. There's a lot more traffic since I've been there. And what else? Yeah, that's it. The road's a definite issue. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I'm sure. We do have an e-comment that Commissioner Fields is going to read.
Yeah, this was submitted about an hour and a half ago from a Pamela Kaczynski, and I'll just read it, it's brief. Is this the same applicant or investor that owned the Sowers HVR LLC that left a wake of destruction in High Valley with numerous violations? I certainly hope not. Does Lake County in this instance know who they are doing business with? Some of these companies are structured in such a way that it makes it difficult to track true ownership. I'm just requesting that the Planning Commission take this into consideration with all applicants. Know who you are dealing business with.
Thank you for reading that. You're welcome to come up. I'm going to let her speak first, and then we'll let you, and then we'll go from there.
I do appreciate the extra time because I did have more, and I couldn't even address the roads because mine are so much bigger, because I am in agreement because they're huge potholes. But the other thing I wanted to say was that properties that are right next to my horses and next to me are not going to be greenhouses. They're going to continue to plant that area. Okay, so like I said, my well is 100 feet from their property, which they are going to continue to plant that area. Right across from my horses, which is less than, it's 200 feet, I took a tape, that's right across from my horses and from myself. And so and then as far as the backup noise, I looked up, you can actually buy backup noise. They call them brigade white noise backup alarm, which is used at lots of agricultural places, like at Rainbow Ag, where you don't even hear the noise decibel is so muted that you can hear it while you're working, but you don't hear it while you're standing there. They're $200 to replace the backup noise. I sit in my living room and I can record. I've got over 40 recordings of the backup noise on my phone, where I can sit in my living room and hear their backup noise. Okay, we're not talking outside. We're talking in my living room. So there are ways to mitigate that backup noise that can work better for the community and especially for my horses, because when you have that much backup noise, they are in constant fear. And the other thing is that those properties are not going, they're going to be continually grown that are right next to my property. I am completely covered with so much marijuana within a very short distance of my property on one whole size, and I'm 6 acres. Okay, so a good portion of my property is just marijuana. And that's not true for the other neighbors, because there is one other neighbor that has a side to it. And all the other properties that are surrounding there have been purchased by the Pasta Farm affiliates. Because I have the records. I looked them all up to see who owned them. And it says Simon Peter, it says Pasta Farm, Simon Peter, other people that might be associated, because I see the tractors going from that. So I'm like this Lone Ranger, and I feel very, very insecure, and I'm very sick, and I can't lose my job, or I lose my insurance. I'm not old enough to get Medicare. I lose my job, I lose my insurance, and I lose my house. So, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your comment. I will go ahead and, did you want to, I'm talking to the applicant behind you. Did you want to come up and maybe have any closing comments or anything like that before I close public comment? Come on up.
I was just going to address.
Can you state your name for me, please?
I'm sorry, Peter Simon.
Thank you.
On behalf of the applicant. There was a question made about our affiliation with other farms. We have no other farms with which we're affiliated. We're grape growers. We have purchased some of the other properties, for instance, the O'Gorman property surrounding us for housing, but we're not. There's no cannabis or anything else on those. Also, just for perspective, I believe Ms. Henry's property is at the very corner. It would be the northwest corner of our property. Our corners meet, but there is not a significant borderline. But I just want you to know that we will do whatever we can to try to mitigate and minimize the impact on Ms. Henry and all of our neighbors. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, what is your strategy behind where you decide to build a greenhouse as opposed to continue to cultivate? In other words, those areas that are closest to the Henry home, is there a reason you wouldn't build greenhouses there rather than somewhere else on your property?
There was, although we would be happy to consider a potential modification to move them. It's kind of a moving target right now with the market. But the problem there is there's a slope to a portion of that property, and our property narrows as you get to that area, and the setbacks become, as you get closer to Ms. Henry's property, if you can look at the map, you'll see kind of a point come in, and the setbacks are dramatically limiting what we can do in that area. So we don't, and on the other end where we are proposing the greenhouses, we have the space to be able to put the greenhouses in, because you need not just the greenhouses, you also need the ability to work around them and access them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jake, are there any hands in the Zoom room before I close public comment?
Yeah, we do have one additional hand raised in the Zoom room. Jennifer Smith, I have given you permission to speak. I see you're unmuted. Will you please confirm your first and last name?
Jennifer Smith.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commission, for hearing this. I think that I will continue to say the same things that I always say. This is a land use issue, and while I'm very sensitive to and appreciate the neighbors' comments, and it's unfortunate when health issues arise, and that there are issues with the roads. But I think we all know there's road issues throughout the county, and it's unfortunate that this isn't a private road that they can take care of. This project is in accordance with the county ordinance, and I will continue to, and I think that we as an industry will continue to support projects that are in compliance with the land use designations that have been created by this county. The applicant has shown and done their due diligence for the major concerns of water. They've worked with and promised to continue to work with the neighbors on traffic. And I think they're doing their best to be a good neighbor. And there's a lot of illegal farms out there. that aren't doing this and that aren't being good neighbors, that don't have enough water. And we need to continue to support those that are trying to bring jobs and trying to bring infrastructure and trying to bring resources to this county. So I will once again voice my opinion for this project for Pasta Farm, and hopefully that this use permit is granted today. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Jake, any other hands?
At this time, there are no more hands in the Zoom room.
Can I just add one more thing? Because I know the acres.
Yeah, if you want to speak, you can come to the microphone. And it's nothing else that hasn't been discussed previously.
Yeah, well, he just said that the acreage across from me was insignificant, but it's actually significant. I'm right here, and there's 5 acres right there. I sit right there. And all of this is cannabis. My house is right there. So you have to see a visual of what I'm up against. And he didn't address that. He glossed over that. So you are able to see how I'm affected. So that's what I want you to see. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. Bring it back to the commission for some discussion. Do you have any questions?
I just have one comment.
Sure.
Land use planning is difficult.
Understandable. Commissioner Chavez? No comments? Looking for action or discussion?
No, I have no further questions or comments. Those that I did have been addressed in the course of the conversation.
Since this is my district, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion.
Okay.
I move that the Planning Commission find that the initial study IS 20-11 applied for by Pasta Farms on property located at 10750, 11000, and 10417 Ziegler Springs North Road and 10833 Diener Drive, Kelseyville, and further describes as APNs 115-00401, 05, 07, and 08 will not have a significant effect on the environment, and therefore mitigated negative declarations shall be approved with the findings as stated in the staff report dated March 24th, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I move that the Planning Commission find that the use permit UP 20-11 applied for by Pasta Farms on property located at 10750, 11000, and 10417 Ziegler Springs North Road, and 10833 Diener Drive, Kelseyville, and further described as APNs 115-004-01, 05, 07, and 08, be granted subject to the conditions and with the findings listed in the staff report dated March 24th, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Please note that the applicant or any interested person is reminded that the zoning ordinance provides for a 7-calendar-day appeal period. If there is a disagreement with the Planning Commission, an appeal to the Board of Supervisors may be filed. The appropriate forms and applicable fee must be submitted prior to 5 p.m. on or before the 7th calendar day following the Commission's final determination. Lastly, item number 4 is a public hearing to consider major use permit UP 22-02 and a mitigated negative declaration IS 22-02. The applicant, Wise Admin, Green Bear Cali Farms, is proposing 16 additional greenhouses totaling 2,304 square feet in one type. I'm just going to wait for everything to kind of get up. Thank you. we're going to start with, I'm not going to completely start over, but we'll go with, it's a major use permit that we were considering today, UP 22-02, and a mitigated negative declaration, IS 22-02. The applicant, Green Bear Cali Farms, is proposing 16 additional greenhouses totaling 2,304 square feet and one A-type 13 self-distribution license to allow legal transportation of cannabis to and from the site. The project is located at 4680 Clark Drive, Kelseyville, California, and further described as APN 008-042-04. Hello, Eric.
Hello again. Yes, we have an expansion of an existing use permit that was issued in 2019. File number UP 18-35 was issued to Green Bear Cali. The original use permit, let's see, how can I word this? The density of the plants inside of the greenhouse was much less than what the cultivator anticipated. He was not able to maximize his interior canopy. Consequently, he wanted to expand the number of greenhouses to enable him to reach the density that he's permitted based on the size of the property and based on the type of licenses that he's requested. He currently has 21 greenhouses that were approved under UP 1835. And he's asking for 16 additional greenhouses, 4 of which would contain immature plants and 12 would contain mature plants. He indicated where the property is located. The parcel number is listed in the staff report. The applicant is Green Bear Cali, represented by Weiss Amin, who is in attendance today, along with his consultant, Trey Sherrill. So we're going to look at the permit request, the project scope, the site description, project analysis, and finally recommendation and conditions. The request again is 16 additional greenhouses. This rose to the level of requiring a brand new use permit. He had actually applied for a modification, but was willing to convert the modification to a new use permit. But it is an expansion, essentially an expansion of UP 18-35. The zoning is RLWW, Rural Lands Waterway. It's in the vicinity of Coal Creek. The nearest portion of the cultivation area is about 200 feet away from the high water top of bank of Coal Creek. Indicated he's requesting 16 32 feet by 96-foot greenhouses, and he was approved in 2019 for 21 greenhouses. Property location, this isn't a very good vicinity map. Site plan, the existing greenhouses are in the white in the center. The expanded area would be on either side. 4 additional greenhouses on the eastern side of the cultivation area, and the rest of the greenhouses would be on the western portion of it. I don't believe he's proposing any additional buildings other than the greenhouses, but I'll let him address that when he gets an opportunity to speak on behalf of this project. There was a water analysis provided by Realm Engineering dated November 18th, 2021. Which is required for any new cannabis cultivation application. This water analysis provided by Realm Engineering indicated that the aquifer was adequate in this location for the expansion, and it's essentially the same density of plants that the cultivator anticipated back in the 2018-2019 use permit, but because he's planting the plants further apart, the density would actually match what he was originally approved for in 2019. It would just have more greenhouse structures. So in order to approve this, we have to make a finding that he complies with Article 51.4 and 27 sub 11 sub AT, which are the approval criteria for commercial cannabis. Getting back to the water analysis, the water analysis was prepared in November of 2021. The well pump rate was 60 gallons per minute. On-site water storage is shown to be 10,000 gallons. Maximum daily usage is projected to be 12,800 gallons. Average daily use is between 4,000 and 5,000 gallons. And I can't read the aquifer recharge rate, but it did pass the analysis for water. I'm not sure how to get rid of that bar at the bottom, and it's blocking some of the text. Great. Okay, so the water aquifer recharge actually exceeds the area demands that tap into that aquifer. He was issued a 4,000 amp service in 2020. There are no grid capacity issues in this area that we're aware of anyway. He does not need additional power. The 4,000 amps is adequate to power all of the greenhouses because he's using light deprivation, which is mixed light, and it requires minimal power. The wattage of the light bulbs can't exceed 25 watts per square foot, I believe. And I indicated there were no power grid issues at the location. So we evaluated this project for compliance with the general plan, the Kelseyville area plan, and the applicable portions of the zoning ordinance, which are primarily 51.4, the 6 findings that I had indicated in the prior application, and they are shown up here. And we were able to make the finding that all 6 of those approval criteria can be met with this project. Likewise, in Article 27, Sub 11, Sub AT, the 3 findings that we had to make, we were able to make. The use complies with all applicable development standards. The applicant is qualified to make the application, and the application complies with the requirements for a cannabis use permit. So CEQA, we did a CEQA evaluation on the original project, and we debated whether or not this would be eligible for a categorical exemption. However, given the footprint of the 16 buildings, we felt that it rose to the level of requiring a cumulative analysis of the CEQA-related impacts. So it took into consideration the impacts of the 21 previously approved greenhouses and the 16 new greenhouses that are being proposed. And the biggest impact had to do with things like erosion control, water usage, how would it be affected, dust mitigation, because the 16 buildings would have to have pads prepared for setting the buildings on the property. The site is almost perfectly flat, and so there would be minimal grading required for the new greenhouses. And the initial study that was prepared didn't propose any additional mitigation measures because they were already in place from the original initial study of 2018. We did receive a public comment. I believe there was just one, and they raised certain points of concern that had to do with dust from traffic, and those are met through conditions C5 through C9. Children's safety from traffic. I'm not quite sure how to address that. I also don't know how frequently there might be a conflict between kids and traffic related to this particular project. I think I'll let the applicant address traffic that would be generated from this new project versus from the previously approved project. Neighbor was concerned about noise from the new greenhouses having filtration systems, and there are conditions in place that actually limit noise measured at the property line. Those are conditions J1 through J3. He was concerned about odor. He indicated that he could smell the cannabis in spite of the fact that the greenhouses already have carbon filtration systems. Neighbors indicating that these do not totally remove all odors. Water, there was concern about inadequate water in the aquifer. The hydro study contradicts that. The hydro study indicated that there is enough water in the aquifer. The annual recharge rate is greater than the cumulative drawdown from all area wells, including this one. And finally, fire risk from machinery. Well, the site's clear to vegetation. The only vegetation on site besides the cannabis, which is inside of greenhouses, is along Coal Creek to the south part of the property. And if I can go back, I think I have an aerial photo. So the cultivation area is here. The vegetation is here. Those are green oak trees, and they follow the path of the water in Coal Creek. So the site has been cleared for years, and I went back all the way to, I think it was 2003 on the Google aerial maps, because I wanted to see the history of the site. And in viewing the site historically, there hasn't been a lot of vegetation on that site for quite a long time, other than the oak trees that align the creek. So after the two initial studies that were done for the project, we're recommending that the Planning Commission adopt subsequent IS 18-43, and approve use permit UP 22-02 with conditions. And I'll answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Eric. Seems pretty straightforward. Do any of you have any questions for Eric or for the applicant before we open it up for public comment? Okay. We will open it up for public comment. I believe the applicant and his consultant are here. Jake, do we have anyone in the Zoom room?
At this time, there are no hands raised in the Zoom room.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Trey Sherrill. I am a Green Bear Farms consultant. I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on the plant density. The reason why we're back here today asking for additional greenhouses. The original use permit, when we applied for the original use permit in 2018, we were under the assumption that that every square inch of the greenhouses would be usable for canopy. What we didn't realize at the time is that greenhouses for commercial cannabis cultivation are considered commercial structures and have to comply with ADA accessibility. So when they were getting the building permits to actually, after the hearing, getting the building permits to build the greenhouses, we realized that, okay, we had to provide an ADA accessible aisle down the middle of each greenhouse. So that ate into a lot of the canopy that we were expecting to use. Another reason we were not able to use every square inch, air filtration systems, and then also you don't want cannabis plants touching the plastic of the greenhouses because they'll get burned. So basically, we're just trying to get the canopy area that was originally proposed, but to do so, we needed to add additional greenhouses. There is an additional area in the form of additional immature plant area. Realized that more immature plant area was needed to sustainably provide immature plants for the canopy areas in the future. So that kind of explains the reason for the expansion, the reason we were requesting an expansion at this time. And I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I believe we have a public comment from the October 28th meeting. This is in my district, and I've heard a lot about this. So I was asked to share this comment that was on the October 28th meeting agenda. So if I can find it.
Commissioner.
Go ahead.
Are you simply reiterating a comment that was submitted to the prior project application?
No, I believe this was continued from
Oh,
October
yes.
28th meeting.
From an October.
There's a comment that Eric referred to from an anonymous person. That's a different comment. This one is from Dr. Gary Mays and Pamela Mays. Would you like me to read it? It's about a page. Or has everybody seen it?
I've seen it, but I'm not sure if the public does have access to that, correct?
If the comment was submitted at a prior hearing, the continued hearing,
Then yes.
and it was available online, and it was provided, so presumably it was provided to the public. If you would like to refresh your memory on the
Yeah, it
comment
was
today,
provided
you
at
could do
the
that.
October meeting, but not at this one. So it's not on the agenda for this meeting.
Well, it would be, yeah, it'd be part of the record.
It is part of the record.
For this particular hearing, yeah.
Okay, great. I'd also like to state, let me get to the right place here. I'd like to make a statement regarding potential conflict of interest. I own property that is about 1,200 feet from that of the applicant, and council has advised me there is a presumption that a decision involving property within 500 feet of an official's property will have a material impact on the official's interest, and she cited the code. However, there is also presumption that a decision involving property 1,000 feet or more from the official's property will not have a material impact on the official's interest. So in my assessment, my property is outside the 1,000-foot rule and will not impact my ability to make an impartial decision. Having said that, I can smell the odors from your project at my house during the season, as can all the neighbors. So I wanted to share that with everybody. I've heard a lot about this. Additionally, there have been some concerns about viewing the lights from Clark Drive. My understanding is that the lights are they're supposed to be completely shielded. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're required to have blackout screening inside of the greenhouses, and the light cannot be visible from outside of the greenhouses.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, I mean, am I looking at the right, when I drive down Clark Drive, I see this big swath of orange lights. Is that indeed from this?
Is that at nighttime?
Yes.
Do you see this?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't have an answer
Okay.
for that.
I know that the bigger issue, I think, I mean, if you're just driving down Clark Drive, you're going to see lights, a lot of lights. But I think the bigger issue that I have, and I'm new to the commission, I wasn't here when this was originally approved, is that this project is a half a mile from a very densely populated Kelseyville. And it really stinks up the town. I know that the carbon filtration system is supposed to remedy that, but it's not working. So I cannot support this project until I hear that that is somehow going to be remedied.
Do you want to speak?
Hi, I'm Waisamin. As far as the odor goes, we do have the carbon filtration in there. And if there's anything else that I need to do in order to get rid of the odor, I will do that. I haven't heard any complaints from my neighbors. I talk to them every day. The only complaint was the dust, which in 2020 I put gravel on all the roads. I maintain the roads yearly. So if there's any complaints other than the one neighbor, then I'll address any complaints that need to be.
Thank you, I appreciate that. There's been a lot of discussion about maybe what we're smelling is from illegal grows, and there's been some investigation, and it seems like the prevailing winds are from your property toward town.
Correct. I'm not too sure, like, maybe a few weeks ago, there was an illegal grow bust that happened in that area in Kelseyville.
Oh, I didn't
Maybe
hear
a
about
couple miles down from where we were at. So it could be mines. I'm not saying that it's not mines, but there are illegal grows around that area as well.
Yeah, there are. I'm just not sure this is, in my opinion, I feel that this is an inappropriate use for that particular area. You know, it's very difficult because I'm familiar with the soils. There's a lot of borax. It's not good for other kinds of agriculture, really. You can see that the vineyard to the west is struggling. So I'm really torn because, you know, the town it's right there.
All the soil that I've hauled has been from outside. I haven't used the soil.
I
that's on the
assume.
property. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Trey Sherrill, the applicant's consultant. You said that the prevailing winds were from direction of Weiss's farm to Kelseyville. It was my understanding that the prevailing winds were from west to east in this area?
Yeah, so what I've observed, just as a local farmer, is during the day, it comes from the northwest, and it hits that mountain, and it kind of curves around.
It swirls.
Yeah, the wind. So
Okay.
I think that's what we're dealing with. At night, it kind of reverses, but in the morning, the first thing you smell is the cannabis.
Yeah. Well, in Eric's presentation, he mentioned that there was a recent power upgrade to the property, and part of that was to provide adequate electricity for environmental controls, and the greenhouses try in an attempt to keep them sealed longer period of time, as opposed to having to open up the sides to keep things cooler during the heat of the summer.
Well, so it sounds like maybe we'll be able to remedy this. Is that what I'm hearing? That would be wonderful.
That would be intended. I know from, I've been working with Weiss for 5 years now, and it sounds like you're a neighbor essentially, or you know neighbors, and they're fine. You know, knock on their door if there's a problem. Weiss is not on site every day. He has employees on site and his father on site every day. But if there's a problem, he would like to know about it so that he can address it. I believe I can speak on your behalf in that regard.
I'm at the edge of Kelseyville, so it's a very populated area over there.
Yeah.
And I also happen to know all of the neighbors around you over there. And I have heard a lot of complaints about the odor. Mostly they're just very nice people and they don't want to complain. But I feel like I'm in a position here to try to remedy the situation if I can.
Absolutely. Weiss's contact information is in the property management plan that was as part of the odor control and security management procedures. But I think when we're done here today, regardless how things go, Weiss, you should share your contact information with Commissioner Field.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good for you. Any other questions or comments for our applicant or his consultant before we make a motion?
No other comments?
So are you not going to be, you felt like it wasn't, since you disclosed your proximity to the project, you don't feel like it's a conflict, correct? Or do we, just someone needs to make a motion and we'll go from there.
The time, commissioners, the time to, the effect of a conflict would be for a commissioner to recuse themselves from the entire proceeding.
Right.
At the start. Commissioner Field had determined based on the provided foot setback under the rules that she was outside of the presumed creation of a conflict. So she wasn't within that sphere. And she's the person who would make that determination and whether or not she could continue within that 1,000-foot setback and be impartial in her decision. And she has made the determination that she can.
And I do appreciate your transparency on that.
And one of the issues, and this is just something that happens with democracy, I think, is it's my constituency.
You're the soundboard. Yeah, absolutely. That's a very important role to have, though.
I am prepared to make a motion.
Okay. Please.
I move that the Planning Commission find that the addendum of the initial study, IS 18-43, applied for by Green Bear Cali LLC on property located 4680 Clark Drive, Kelseyville, further described as APNs 007-042-04, will not have a significant effect on the environment, and impacts resulting from this project can be mitigated with specific mitigation measures being added as conditions of approval, and with the findings listed in the staff report dated March 24th, 2022.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Me.
Motion carries.
I further move that the Planning Commission find that the use permit UP 22-02 applied for by Green Bear Cali LLC on property located on 4680 Clark Drive, Kelseyville, further described as APN 008-042-04, does meet the requirements of Section 551.4 and 60 of the Lake County zoning ordinance, and the modification be granted subject to the conditions and with the findings listed in the staff report dated March 24th, 2022.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Please note that the applicant or any interested person is reminded that the zoning ordinance provides for a 7-calendar-day appeal period. If there is a disagreement with the Planning Commission's decision, an appeal to the Board of Supervisors may be filed. The appropriate forms and applicable fee must be submitted prior to 5 p.m. on or before the 7th calendar day following the Commission's final determination. Thank you. I know Director Darby is not here. Do we have any untimed staff updates or office news to go over before I adjourn our meeting?
You do have the little memo that she circulated. That's probably the most important
Okay.
changes.
That we received via email?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments from council or anything else?
No, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you. Meeting adjourned.